welcome to SNEB'S Biology. If you like my video, hit like, share with others, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss an update. In this part, we will try to understand how organisms respond to the various abiotic factors. So let's start. So there are two main factors which we are going to be studying here. Before we talk of these factors, we need to understand two terms. One is regulate and the second one is conform. So regulate is to maintain a constant conditions. It can be a temperature or it can be osmolarity. And conform is to adjust according to the surroundings. So if we are talking about the factors, that is temperature. So there are animals who are able to maintain their constant temperature. They are known as thermoregulators. And there are some animals who are not able to regulate their constant body temperature. Their body temperature varies. Their body temperature changes according to the climatic condition. That means if the outer temperature is slightly lower, their body temperature will also get lower. If the outer temperature is higher, then body temperature also slightly rises. So they will be called thermoconformers. Clear? Next, the second factor is osmolarity. So this is basically the inner water and ionic concentration that we are talking about. So there are animals who are able to regulate the internal conditions. How much water, how much of salt should remain inside the body. So they will be called osmoregulators. And some are not able to maintain. That means if the outer medium has more concentration, then their body concentration will also increase or the salt concentration of their body will also increase. And if they are in the medium where the salt concentration is lower, their ionic concentration will also lower. So they are known as osmoconformers. Okay, we will first take up the example of osmoregulators and osmoconformers. So to understand this, let us take a situation. If there is a fish and this fish is found in fresh water and this is another fish which is found in the ocean, then what is the conditions? In fresh water, salt concentration is very less. We said that here the salt concentration is normally 5% and in sea, salt concentration is normally 30 to 35%. And we are talking about the regulator right now. So if these fishes are regulators, whether they are found in the freshwater conditions or in marine condition, they will still able to maintain their osmolarity. So if that osmolarity is 15, that means this much of ionic concentration is there in the body. Okay, so now if we are talking about this freshwater fish, then what kinds of problem will this fish encounter if it has to maintain 15% of concentration? Ions, they diffuse from higher concentration to lower concentration. So there will be passive diffuse or movement of ions. That means the animals will not be able to control it. Second problem, water always moves from a less concentrated solution to a more concentrated solution or hypotonic to hypertonic. So there will be passive movement of water also. So both the movements which are taking place are passive movements, but because of these ions are coming out and water is going in, so this fish, if it has to maintain 15% of concentration, it has to deal with this two problem. Water is moving in passively, so what should be done with that extra water? It should be eliminated from the body. So they excrete hypotonic urine. This hypotonic urine will contain plenty of water. So all that water which is going in will be excreted out. And when there is so much water going in, they need not drink. The second is the ions are passively moving out. So there is active absorption of ions and this active absorption is done by chloride cells. Chloride cells are present on gills. So by excreting hypotonic urine, by not drinking water, and by actively taking ions in, the feces is able to maintain its internal condition. Clear? Now, the same kind of fish, if it is living in this sea water, the internal is still 15 and it has to maintain 15. Now, in this condition, what are the situation? What are the problems these kinds of fishes are going to face? Now, here is salt concentration is more. So, now salts passively diffused in from higher concentration to lower concentration, and water is going to move from a dilute solution to concentrated solution. So, water comes out. This is also passive process. Okay, now there are two problems which the fish has to manage. The first problem is passively salts are going in. So, these salts can be pumped out actively so that all those extra salts which are going in can be thrown out. This is again done by chloride cells. The same chloride cells which helps in this absorption, and they are active outflow of ions also. And the second problem is water is going out. So these fishes, they excreted hypertonic urine and drink a lot of water. So in both the situation, if the inner concentration is to be maintained, the problems are passive movements. Either water goes in or water goes out, either salts go in or go out. So passive process is not under our control, but actively that problem can be solved. So these two fishes are osmoregulators. Clear? Now what would be a conformer? A conformer, suppose this is a fish and it has to survive in a condition. See, outer condition is 5% and its body condition is 15%. So what is it going to do? It will release those ions and it will brings down the inner concentration closer to the outer concentration. It may be 6 or 7 or it may be 8%. Now, if there is no too much of gap, these osmoregulator problems will not take place. The second situation is the outer condition is 30 to 35%. So, it actively takes ions and brings the inner concentration for 15 to somewhere closer to the outer condition. Again, the difference between the inner and outer medium is not much. Now, it has adjusted to what is outside. If outside concentration is more, it increases its body salt concentration. If outside the salts are less, it decreases its salts. So, it is conforming. It is adjusting to whatever is the external condition. Clear? So, the regulators, irrespective of what have the condition is in the outer medium, they will still maintain the inner concentration. So, they are osmoregulators. And the example of osmoregulators are aquatic vertebrates. And here is an exception. Exception is hagfish. And the osmoconformers, they are the aquatic invertebrates. So, to these abiotic conditions, these organisms adjust or respond by either becoming regulators or conformers. Okay. Now, we are talking about the third method, that is migrate. There are many animals, especially birds and fishes, they shows migration. Now, what exactly migration is? Migration is a temporary to and fro movement of organism. Now, there are various reasons why these organisms migrate. One is to avoid some highly unsuitable condition. It can be extreme cold, it can be extreme heat. So, animals avoids that condition, and for that period, they would move to some other place where they have favorable conditions. Once in their original place, those favorable conditions return, the animals also come back to this same place. And that's why we are calling it temporary to and fro, because they go to some place and then come back. And the reasons are one of is photo period, especially for birds. For birds, we say they migrate for breeding. They go to a place and that place is termed as their breeding ground. Photoperiod is very important factor for birds. Photoperiod is important for the activity of gonads. That means their sex organs, testes and ovaries, they become functional only when they get a particular photoperiod. So if the birds have to breed, they will have to migrate to an area where they would find the suitable photoperiod. Okay. The second factor could be in search of food, so that once they breed there, they reproduce there, and as soon as the young ones are born, they would have sufficient food to feed to the young ones. So this could be the reasons, and these things are not available to their original place, so they migrate to the other place. Clear? The examples of birds especially which migrates are falcon, Siberian crane, flamingo, etc. So these are some important birds which shows migration, and these are some important bird sanctuaries which are famous for these migratory birds. Next, if you are talking about the fishes, there are two types of fishes. One is catadromous, second is anadromous. So catadromous fishes, they are the freshwater fishes, but for breeding they would migrate to sea or ocean. So they go to ocean, they reproduce there and they lay their eggs there. And anadromous is just rivers. So they are normally found in ocean or sea, and they migrate to freshwater for egg laying. So depending upon from where to where fishes are migrated, we can call them catadromous or anadromous fishes. Clear? Catadromous fishes example is eel, and the anadromous fish example is hilsa. Okay, so by changing the place where the animals, these animals live, they are able to cope up with the changed abiotic conditions. So they can show migration. Next, the fourth response is known as suspend. In suspend, we will talk about three things. First one is hibernation. So hibernation is commonly known as winter sleep. Animals like polar bears, they go for this winter sleep or hibernation period. Polar bears, as the name suggests, they live in the extreme cold condition. To avoid those cold conditions, they eat a lot, they gather that nourishment, and they go for a period like 2 months or 3 months of hibernation. They go into cave-like area, they reduce their metabolic activities, and with that reserve materials, they are able to survive for that extremely cold period. Once that cold period is gone, they would come out and again live their normal life. Clear? The second one is estivation. Estivation is known as the summer sleep. This is seen in the animals which are live in the extremely hot condition. So here they would try to avoid this extreme heat. The third one is diapause. The diapause is very important. This is mainly shown by some zooplanktons. Zooplanktons in adverse condition form cyst-like structure and go into this diapause. Here they suspend their development also. So the stage in which they go into diapause, it is a same stage of development when they come out. Whereas in case of hibernation and estivation, what happens is the development is taking place, metabolic activities are taking place, but they are bare minimum, so that the animal is able to survive with whatever reserve materials they have. Clear? In case of plants or different part of the plants undergoes dormancy to avoid unfavorable condition of the environment. Their metabolic activity ceases for a period of time. Okay. So whether it is a regulation, thermo or osmoregulation or conformation, or whether it is migration or suspension of certain metabolic activities, the animals are able to cope up with the abiotic condition, and all this is possible because they have various kinds of adaptation, and this adaptation help them cope up with all these abiotic conditions. We will take some important examples and their adaptations, and we will see how these adaptations have helped these animals and plants to cope up with the abiotic condition. So these examples and their adaptation that we will discuss in the next part. Thank you.